What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with our Week 15 college football preview. And you may think, well, there's only one game this week. And yeah, you're right. We're only picking one game, but we will be previewing all of the New Year's Six big bowl games this year. And we're just going to get right into our video here as we're going to talk about last week first, all the conference championships. And Ty, got off to a 1-6 start, but luckily both of us got those four games at the end there. And I'm catching up. I'm only two behind heading into this week and the Bulls. So hopefully I can get you at the end of the year here.
Yeah, I think I talked about Oregon 2 weeks ago when they were blown out by Utah. Well, I'm going to talk about them again here for a second. That was embarrassing. There's no way around that. I thought Oregon was a better team on paper both times, and they got blown out by Utah twice this year. So that was pretty embarrassing. Looked like they didn't even show up. So they're going to have a lot of question marks going into the offseason. Now they lost their head coach, obviously. So I'm not sure what their plan is going forward.
I think for me, coming out of this week, obviously Michigan absolutely obliterated Iowa, which I didn't even think would be that high scoring of a game. But I think the biggest takeaway is Georgia losing to Alabama pretty bad. It seems like Alabama was, just playing with us for the first 12 games, and then all of a sudden in the SEC championship, they're the best team in the nation yet again, earning that one seed. Obviously the bias in me makes Michigan want to be number one, but I can see why Alabama is the number one. But as we head into this week, the only game we got this week that we're picking is the Army-Navy game, the historical game that has its own week. And I'm rolling with Army, one, because obviously way better record than Navy. And we were just looking at their schedule, and two of their three losses were to Wisconsin by 6, Wake Forest by 2 touchdowns, and a bad loss at Ball State. And other than that, this team could be 10-1 right now, and possibly even ranked. And I think they're going to have no trouble with this Navy team.
Yeah, I'm going with Army here. Maybe take the over. 34 seems, that's pretty low, not gonna lie. But this game is always fun for me to watch. It's always over in 3 hours. Both teams are running 7-8 minute drives, running the option. So it's like a leather helmet football game. But I'm gonna go with Army here. They've had the hot hand in this rivalry lately, and I think that continues.
And we'll be talking about the first game of the New Year's Six Bowls. We were talking about Pitt's offensive coordinator resigned. It seems like nowadays either a coach or their best players aren't even playing in the bowl games unless it's the playoffs, which is pretty sad to see nowadays. But it's going to be interesting to see, if Kenny Pickett plays or not. I think that's going to kind of sway the line for sure, and a lot of picks as well. But talk about this Michigan State team. Kenneth Walker has been the guy for this team, and it's going to be interesting to see if he plays as well.
Yeah, I just want to start out by saying you have to expand the college football playoff. 12 teams would be perfect, I think, because I want to talk about this game. And the first questions I have for this game is Kenny Pickett going to play, and is Kenneth Walker going to play? And that's the point we're at right now with even big bowl games like this. So, that being said, if one of those guys sits out, obviously that's a huge disadvantage for either team. Both of those guys are basically the entire offense of these teams. But if everyone plays, I think I want to lean towards Michigan State, but it's hard to. This is a hard game to pick. Both of these teams can score a lot of points and have suspect defenses, so it's going to be high scoring. Probably going to hit the over. But yeah, we'll see who sits out.
And the first game, the first playoff, you got undefeated Cincinnati, Alabama, who's been a powerhouse for the last 15 years. And I think the line may be a little deceiving. Alabama 13.5. It could either be Alabama wins by 21 or Cincinnati, covers and either could win straight up, or, they could cover by a field goal or a touchdown. I think this will be a lot closer than people are going to think just because, Cincinnati, they're not a Power 5 team, first team ever to get in, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's already writing them off. Well, they're still a really good team. Luke Fickell, either, he may have a new job at the end of the year with a different, with a Power 5 school, or he might stay at Cincinnati and continue to lead this team, to potentially college football playoff every year. But to the Alabama's credit, Bryce Young probably going to win the Heisman after that. Pretty much just destroying Georgia in the championship. That's probably his Heisman moment, that whole game. And, if he plays well, I can't really see Cincinnati slowing that down. But I think it's all going to come down to Bryce Young on how this game, is going to result.
Yeah, I agree. Bryce Young definitely locked up the Heisman already, but this is a hard game, especially if you're betting this game. I have no idea what I would do with that spread. Cincinnati obviously is a great team, but you haven't seen them play in Alabama or anyone like that in a while. Obviously, they played Georgia last year, but how motivated really was Georgia for that game? We'll never know. But this is the playoff. Cincinnati's finally here. They are, they're going to come ready. Desmond Ritter's a great quarterback, really underrated, but Alabama has a lot they're going to throw at him. And I wouldn't be, if this was a week ago and this was the line, I would say pound Cincinnati. But watching Alabama play against Georgia, all of a sudden they look like the clear-cut best team in the country. And that kind of came out of nowhere. So if they can keep that up, Cincinnati is not going to have a chance in this game. But if you get the Alabama from the first 12 games, then Cincinnati can compete in this game.
And, we got our Wolverines taking on Georgia. I'm excited we got Georgia as a draw. I think our defense is going to be able to handle their offense, and especially Stetson Bennett. If he is the starter, I'm kind of expecting a QB swap at halftime, in all honesty. They're going to throw JT Daniels out there because I think that's the best way Georgia's going to win this game. You saw against Alabama last week that he just didn't get it done. Threw 2 picks. One was in the red zone. One was towards the end of the game. And I think that trend may continue, just because if Hutchinson and Ojabo can get to the quarterback quick, Bennett's going to have to deal with pressure all night long. And then you got to talk about the offense for Michigan against Georgia's, best defense in the country. If they can have a similar performance as they did against Ohio State, I believe Michigan wins this game by a touchdown or more. But, to Georgia's credit, they obviously deserve to still be here after last week's embarrassment. They're still going to be looking to prove people wrong. And, of course, the college football playoff community favors the SEC as much as they can. So they have the 2 SEC teams not playing against each other, which more than likely they should be playing against each other. But this is probably going to be the better game of the 2.
Yeah, I think the line's a little disrespectful, although I'm a little biased. But for Michigan on offense, this has to be a Blake Corum game in the running game, and you have to do what they've been doing the last few games, which is using your speed and space, which has been their motto for the last 3 years. So you gotta get the ball on end arounds like you saw against Ohio State, or trick plays like you saw against Iowa. You can't just run this team to death like you saw Michigan do in the second half against Ohio State. This defense is much better than Ohio State, especially against the run. But Georgia's defense showed some weaknesses in their secondary against Alabama for sure, getting shredded by Bryce Young. On the other side, Georgia's offense, they're never going to light you up, but they have a pretty good running back in James Cook. But the quarterback, like you said, the quarterback position is going to be a question. Maybe they even start JT Daniels for this game. That wouldn't surprise me because Stetson Bennett, you started him against a playoff team last week and you lost by 3 scores. So do you really roll him back out there again against what I think is a better defense than Alabama? Maybe not a better team, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who Georgia starts at quarterback and whether Michigan decides to test their secondary early.
And on Saturday, we got the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl, and you got the new head coach for Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman, making his debut. And I think Notre Dame, they're more ecstatic, I think, now that with him at head coach as they were with Brian Kelly. Um, obviously Kelly's departure sucks for Notre Dame, and a lot of people were caught off guard by that. But this is the right guy for the program. It's if you saw the video of him getting officially announced in front of the whole team, you could tell the whole team was excited, thrilled for him to be the new head coach. He's fairly young too, so he could be the Notre Dame coach for a long time coming. And you got Oklahoma State, who, without their defensive coordinator, tough loss in the Big 12 championship. They could be a playoff team. Who knows? They could have surprised someone. And now, how are you going to respond? And I don't think they're going to respond well, just because Notre Dame still got talent. But I think the big concern here is points. That's why the over-under is at 45.5 here, because I really don't know what the final score to this game could be. It could be another ugly Wisconsin Notre Dame game like early in the year, score a total of 38 points, I believe. Or this could be a shootout game. But to each of these teams' credit, they've had really good years, just missing out on the playoff, and this is why they need the expansion, because you would see at least one, maybe two of these teams in there. But congrats to both these teams on making a New Year's Six bowl.
Yeah, I would just say Notre Dame is definitely going to be the more motivated team going into this game. Those players love Marcus Freeman. That's why, they hired him as the head coach. They didn't look elsewhere. So in his first game as head coach, those players are going to really want to win this game for him, build some momentum for next year. And Oklahoma State, on the other hand, they just lost their defensive coordinator and they just lost the Big 12 championship and their playoff hopes, and they lost by a yard or, 3 inches. So I don't think they're going to be super excited to play in this game like Notre Dame is playing for their new coach. So motivation is a big factor in these bowl games, and I think that's really going to help Notre Dame.
And talking about motivation here, you got two teams looking to prove something here. And Ohio State, how are they going to respond in the first game after the Michigan loss? And Utah, who destroyed Oregon twice to prove they're the best team in the Pac-12, and I really wouldn't want to go up against this Utah team right now. They look like a top 4 team in the country this last month, and definitely going to be a shootout, I believe. It's going to be weather in question, who's going to play, who isn't going to play. As Ohio State has 3 NFL receivers, round 1 picks as well. And I think the edge got to go to Ohio State just because how dominant they've been the last 5-6 years. But, to Utah's credit, once again, they somehow find ways to win and win convincingly. And I think this will probably be the best game out of the non-college football playoff games, at least competitive-wise.
Yeah, I think this will be a game that comes down to the wire. I think Utah will probably cover that 6.5. And like you already said, Ohio State, I'm sure Wilson, Olave, one or both of those guys sits out. And I'm sure I'm forgetting other players that have the potential to sit out. So I think if this was played a month ago, Ohio State wins this game easily because they're motivated. All their guys are playing. But now you're playing a red hot Utah team. And, this team knew that they weren't going to make the college football playoffs. So they knew that this Rose Bowl game is what they were playing for throughout the last month or 2 of the season. So they're more motivated than ever to play in this game. So I think they're a dangerous team, and they could definitely beat Ohio State, even though the Buckeyes are much better than them on paper.
And for our last game, you got Baylor and Ole Miss at the Sugar Bowl. And, I think this is a great way to close out the New Year's Six with potentially the best on paper matchup. You got Baylor squeaking out that Big 12 championship by probably 3 centimeters, and Ole Miss and Matt Corral. It's going to be interesting, though, if Matt Corral plays or not, because he's one of the top 3 QB prospects heading into next year's NFL draft. Because they don't have anything to play for. Once again, got to throw in the college football playoff expansion. Because this Ole Miss team, the loss to Alabama, and who was the other loss? Do you remember?
Ole Miss. Arkansas? No, not
I don't
that
know.
one.
Well, either way, they still would have got in just because they have been playing really good football since that loss to Alabama. And they didn't even play their best that game, and it kind of showed towards the end. But since that moment, this Ole Miss team has looked like a top 5 team, and I'd be scared to go up against that offense for sure. And I think the over is going to go way over here. I know Baylor has a great defense, but when you're going up against a really good quarterback, I just can't see how they don't score at least 30 if Matt Corral plays. And Baylor, give them credit, Big 12 champions and great run game. But that's kind of all you can really say about them is their good defense and run game. And once again, it's a quarterback thing. Is their quarterback going to be consistent and come out, or are they going to have to depend on the run and hopefully get ahead early? So that's definitely something to monitor in this game. Is Baylor's favored by 1.5. And if Matt Corral doesn't play for Ole Miss, I think that spread's going to at least change by 3 or 4. But if you're betting on Baylor, I think this is the time to buy on Baylor.
Yeah, I think if Matt Corral plays, this is going to be a really good game overall. I don't really see anyone else sitting out for these teams. So it's a big game for both teams. Ole Miss and Baylor coming off wins, so these teams are happy to be here. Baylor's coming off a huge win in their conference championship. Ole Miss is coming off a huge rivalry win at Mississippi State. So both of these teams are hungry still, and this could be a really big game to build some momentum for these teams going forward, especially I think Ole Miss. I think if Ole Miss wins this game, they gain more momentum. They maybe gain a few recruits, and they could really compete in the SEC next year. So big game for both teams, and I'm probably looking forward to this game maybe the most out of all the New Year's Six bowl games, especially because it seems like both teams are motivated, and it seems like if Corral plays, no one's really going to sit out of this game, which seems to be the question in every bowl game now.
And before we end the video here, we are going to be doing a Bull Pick'em on ESPN. If you guys would like to join that Bull Pick'em, we're going to put the link in the description here. It's free to play. See how you guys can match up against us for all the bowl games. And I believe you have to get in your first picks by the December 17th. So, you got at least a week here to do that. It takes you about 5-10 minutes. It's just straight up, just picking the teams, no spread, nothing. If you'd like to join, once again, it's going to be in the description down below. And if you're scrolling down there, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 100 subs now that we hit our goal at 50. And hit the like button as well. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.
She never called back.